Aly Khalifa. Good to be here. I don't know what's going on with the football game, but glad you're here, because we're talking about other stuff. It's really great to see young folk here. A couple of reasons. For one, it's a beautiful Saturday, and the fact that you're in here is amazing. That's a testament to your own personal development. But secondly, I think it relates a lot to my own topic, which is, as my older brother who's here would attest to, you know, when I was 16, 17, there's a lot of angst, right? And trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do, and what is it that I can offer? What is it that's good work? And so, you know, I am a mechanical engineer as well as a designer. Sometimes I really have to search for what's going on. And E.F. Schumacher wrote Small is Beautiful, just an amazing treatise on how we can reform our economies to really be sustainable and friendly and knock out a lot of the problems that we've been hearing people talk about. But he wrote a book also called Good Work, which really sort of surveyed people who are happy about what they were doing. And then he started drawing about commonalities, about what is it that makes these people happy. And he realized it's because they're doing good work. And he really defined it as these three principles that maybe have been haunting me ever since I was 16, about really what is it, and producing something that's useful, either as a product or as a service, being essential to feeling like your work is valuable. Perfecting your talents. If you're an artist, if you're a musician, if you're a writer, but perfecting that and feeling like you're working towards that every day is important. And then to overcome this idea that I can do it all, but learning how to collaborate. And things like SPARKcon and Designbox and other things that I've done have been chasing this dragon. I was lucky enough last year to receive an Eisenhower Fellowship. Eisenhower Fellowships is a fantastic program. I was one of 9 Americans selected and 21 international fellows selected to do an international exchange and really start to learn about other cultures and understand a different prism about what you do. It's a fantastic experience. It takes 6 weeks. And I was in Southeast Asia to start looking at sustainable design, to start looking at a variety of different topics that I think are just so compelling. What is creativity? What is creative community? How does something like SPARKcon happen in Indonesia? And it's funny because then, you know, I had to get a suit. I had to get 2 suits because I knew I'd sweat through one. And so I had 2 suits, and then I would present the letterhead, the Eisenhower Fellowship, so people could, you know, and it's just impressive people, ambassadors, ministers, and then they would look at this picture on the letterhead, and I'll try to do the face now. But I guess I was just the other bald guy that, you know, and so they started wondering, like, oh, are you Eisenhower? Or well, what it allowed me to do is to realize that, you know, to know England, one must leave England. I mean, to know what we're doing in Raleigh, to know what we're doing in the Triangle, it was important for me to go see what are the analogous situations that are happening over there. And what I started to realize is that as I was meeting people and being halfway across the world, I was learning lessons about home. The first was a real lesson about a dedication to what's local. And this resonates very much for SPARKcon. SPARKcon is something that we've generated. We have just this huge team of people to show off 2,000 local talented people so that people understand that there is a lot of creativity here. Well, Laretna Adishakti, she's in Yogyakarta, which is in it's the cultural center of Indonesia. And she says whenever there's a disaster from these volcanoes, people send in the Red Cross. But we're losing more than just people when we have these problems. We're actually having villages decimated, and as a result, we lose a lot of our culture, including in this particular area, a lot of batik culture. So I'm actually wearing one of her shirts right now. Laretna is an amazing visionary, and what she decided to do is, as these villages were, I mean, really, you have boulders the size of buses come rolling through a village. It's an unbelievable thing. And the people scatter, and so the batik community that you had, all of a sudden the wax artist is somewhere, and then the person who's doing the dyeing is somewhere else. And so now you've lost your batik. So what she decided to do was start being the connector. and start working with the wax artist to really be able to get them to start drawing in wax. This is the resist, right, before you do the dyeing. And then after that, start working with people who really knew the recipes. And with the recipes, what I'm wearing right now is mahogany and indigo, both of which are growing there. And it's special recipes to make these just beautiful things. And by being able to work with some of the people who are like the village chemists and the village artist, was actually then creating new work, new indigenous work using heirloom techniques, and now providing these people with income, especially recovering from some disasters. There's also, I learned in the Philippines, there's something about rigor. And if you're going to dedicate yourself to something local, you better know more about it than anybody else. Professor Arboleda was teaching all about corn and wheat in the middle of an island in the Philippines that doesn't have corn or wheat. And this is sort of like the system that is being dictated by the government, that this is what you teach, this is what we teach. And therefore you will teach that, even though you're surrounded by coconut farmers who are on below subsistence levels. So eventually he quit school, but after he really started studying electron microscope, coconut absorbs 8 times its weight in water. So when you are in the Philippines, a lot of times you have this smell of burning, and the burning is the burning of the coconut, because what they'll do is they'll harvest the meat, press the oil, sell the oil, burn the rest. So for 1 cent per kilogram was his cost for getting a bunch of coconut, throwing it through a machine. He did this amazing analysis about how much it absorbs, and then through his own little machine of extracting this fiber was able to start making these geotextiles. So lining the banks of these runoff streams throughout the Philippines, especially with so much development and things happening, these soak up like sponges. And so rather than the water running down, causing erosion, and then leaving the water table because it's going to the ocean or somewhere else, these things jump up like sponges and then slowly release back into the water table. So now countries like Germany are pulling out their concrete-lined streams and actually now going back into these absorbent geotextiles by learning from someone in the middle of the Philippines. There's also the idea about imagination. Imagination is critical, I think, to understanding how to get towards good work. So John Hardy and his daughter, immensely talented Laura Hardy, started looking at bamboo. They're in the island of Bali. Bali has a lot of bamboo. And we noticed in Bali particularly, it's such a beautiful place that people really hate to spoil it. And especially Westerners who move there and maybe were right before their eyes were watching the whole thing sort of fall apart. So John recognized that possibly bamboo, which is growing everywhere, should be what they build with. Not 2x4s imported from China or from wherever else, but let's use the indigenous stuff. Well, bamboo doesn't grow straight, not very straight. And just treating with a little bit of borax, which is non-toxic so the bugs don't eat it, you can actually do some pretty amazing things. So this is a picture of a kitchen where every single material you see there, except for the stone top, is bamboo. So depending on the way he cut it and the way he built it, if you got out of the realm, the thinking that I have to use 2x4s and do straight lines, but actually use bamboo and just go with the curves, some of the most magnificent architecture you've ever seen. And this was using imagination, not trying to make a piece of bamboo become like a 2x4, but saying, what can bamboo architecture be? This was compelling. He has an entire village of these homes. It's fantastic. In Indonesia, once you get to Yogyakarta, which is maybe not the easiest place to get to, then if you drive for a long time, you can get to Temanggung. And in Temanggung there's this immensely talented Singa Kartuno. And this guy could be a hotshot designer in Jakarta. I mean, this guy is a very, very talented designer. And he has these wooden radios. And what he decided to do was say, rather than me come up, because I can't come up if my village doesn't come up. I'm from Temanggung. I can go to Jakarta and I can make money, but how do I have any net worth if my village doesn't have an increased worth with me? So he moved back to Temanggung. He designed this wooden radio, which they're gorgeous radios. And they can work with Bluetooth and everything else, but it's all using the local resources and using all his classmates and people in the village that he grew up with to actually manufacture them. His factory and his office are almost interchangeable. So this is actually in his home, which ends up being his conference room. And if you walk 50 feet over, then you're in his factory. And you would die to work in this factory. I mean, it's just unbelievable, beautiful architecture, natural light, the air is fantastic. And he's dedicated to the natural resources, that all the wood that goes into these radios, he grows. And as a result, he says, I can't take anything without giving something back. So what he actually has an organic chemist from Japan that makes sure that everything is completely organically grown. He has the fish, aquaculture, which is replenishing the root system, so he has a full ecosystem all around making wooden radios. And he says, if I do it this way, and I have fish, because people like to fish over there, he's like, well, you know, maybe farming will be cool again, and we'll stop getting rid of all our farmland. In Thailand, I met Dr. Kespachara. He actually visited recently, and we had him come. This is a gentleman who, as an MD, realized that the most important thing to do was actually start looking at IT, and that when all the rural hospitals in Thailand were told that they had to have software installed into their system, but it's only for a couple $1,000s per hospital, he realized, let's do open source. So he designed this open source hospital software. He started backing up all the data as I think he's in more than 500 locations in Thailand, and from that then started getting big data and realizing when outbreaks and epidemics are happening. Now he has an iPhone app, so when you go to your doctor, it links to that, and you can actually see predictive stuff about might you get diabetes if you continue this way. I mean, here's a guy who didn't have all the hang-ups that we had, and we can learn so much from that. And a lot of that was just really focusing on the full meta system, not just being an MD, but what's everything around it. And this software is incredible. I hope we get to deploy something like that here. The Mashai Foundation is a legendary thing. This is a gentleman in Thailand who almost single-handedly stopped the huge increased spread of AIDS by being unafraid of talking about condoms. So that's a Santa Claus condom right there. And he made all these garments, and you go to Cabbages and Condoms, and you can just see you can't believe it. Meanwhile, you're eating like the best food, and it's the hippest place in Bangkok to go eat. So imagine someone, even when the American ambassador came over on July 4th to greet him, he gave him a red, white, and blue condom. Right? This is a guy, and it worked, right? Real dedication. And this has been just a fantastic force. Not only that, but always making sure he had, for instance, a restaurant where he would talk about this awareness, but also that funded the nonprofit. And to me, one of his big innovations was the for-profit and nonprofit should always be together. You should do both. Otherwise, you're always going to be, you're going to be always at the mercy of what other for-profit business that you're next fundraising from. Transformational leadership to me was a real learning thing. This is from a study that happened in the Philippines. What they realized that when they took the 25 most successful entrepreneurs from Bicol in the Philippines, they started slicing, dicing, trying to figure out everything. Why are these 25 people more successful than the other 500 people that are out there? And they realized one of the salient things was that they're transformational leaders. You can be a transactional leader, meaning like you do something for me and I pay you. Transformational leader is I have to give you a vision and you have to agree to do it with me, but there's no transaction. And the result of her study was that she found that a lot of these people that were transformational leaders were the successful entrepreneurs. And where did they learn that? From volunteering. And so her final thesis was, if you want to start a business, go volunteer. Forget about focusing on yourself and your business plan and all that stuff. Get out there, get some skills about working with people. That's how you're going to inspire. That's how you're going to get people to go along with your vision, because you're probably not going to have a lot of cash at the beginning. So what we found is, like, in the pursuit of good work, there's just dedication to the local resources, all these lessons that we had. And when you boil the whole thing down, what it really means is to be present. If I really slice and dice and I try to figure out what is the commonality in all this, it's to be present. It's to be here and to look around you and look at the people around you and what is really happening. It's that no moment and then that changing your life about what is it. and really being present. And that's going to be even more challenging with digital devices and everything else, is to fully be here and now. And so eventually that made me realize I have to, if I really want to do good work, I have to go back to poetry. So Walt Whitman has a quote that's also stood in my head since being a 16-year-old. "This is what you shall do. Love the earth and the sun and the animals. Re-examine all you've been told at school or church in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your soul, and your very flesh shall be a great poem." I think if you want to do good work, you have to be thinking along these lines. And I think there are examples that we can learn from, not just what are we doing in the developed world, what are we doing in Raleigh, what are we doing in North Carolina, the United States. We can find examples of people who are transforming, who are doing really good work, and hopefully we can learn from them. Thank you all.